Hello and welcome to the Happy Little Futures podcast. We're going to begin, as always, by taking a nice deep breath in. We're going to breathe into our stomachs and out through your mouth. And hopefully have released a little bit of tension and stress, maybe, with that final out breath. So, last week, as I mentioned, and as if you've been following me on Facebook and Instagram and all the other places that I seem to now post, um, I it was Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week. This really inspired me last week. I woke up on Tuesday morning, I think it was, and I was sort of sitting there. As I said last week, I've been getting up really early to work, so I was like, I'd got up, I'd meditated for a little bit. It's part of sort of my new routine of getting up early, and I tell you what, it's been amazing. I'm really enjoying that part of it. There's some mornings that I actually only get up to meditate in silence without anyone else around me, and then it comes to work, and this Tuesday was one of them. It comes to work, and I'm just like, well, shall I just go back to bed now? Am I just wasting my energy if I try and do anything? And I was like, no, you've got a long list of things that you need to do, so let's do it. So I made a list of things that I need to do that I'm not getting to, and I was like, and I need to do a post for Facebook and Instagram and all of that sort of stuff. I haven't scheduled one. I need to get better. So I did a little bit of like telling myself off about the fact that I was really on the ball when I first started this with making sure all my posts were up to date, and now I'm like feeling like I'm starting to lag behind again, and who's judging? I'm pretty sure none of you guys are going, oh, she's not posted in a few days. I'm going to judge her seriously. It's just me setting my own unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic in the sense that I do have three young children. One of them is at home with me most days, and I've only just started to get that bit of time during the day that I can work without any children around and without that mum guilt kicking in, making me go, oh, but I should be doing this with the kids instead. Um, so it was only judging by my own standards, and I was looking and I was like, what am I going to post about? I need to do this, I need to do that, I should say about this, I've got to sort this bit out for the website, I've got to do this, that, and the other. And then I went on to one of them. I can't even remember exactly whether it was Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. But I was on one at like 5:30 in the morning, looking to double check when I'd last posted something about something else. I can't even remember now what it was about. And I spotted that it was Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week. Well, boy, was I excited. I've done a lot in my podcast and in work about my kids. I've mentioned my mental health. I've mentioned, I think I've sort of gone into a little bit of detail as to what I've been through in the past and sort of where I've come from. Um, but I saw this and I was like, I need to tell people about this. It's like, I need to share my story. I need to share it and feel maybe a little bit more vulnerable, very publicly, um, than I am possibly comfortable with. I need to I need to go ahead and just put myself out there. And I don't know what people are going to say. No one might even watch it, judging by my my social media statistics. I was like, chances are no one will even see it, so it's fine. Um, but I'll do it anyway, just to be safe. Well, to be safe, to live up to my own like, oh, you've got to do this, Lucy. This is a real thing. Um, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And I was like, and in the process, I want to create a safe space for other parents to do it. I also want to create somewhere that those people that want more information from me or want to connect with other sort of like-minded parents or teachers or just other people supporting kids, and maybe struggling with overwhelm, like struggling to just find that second of peace in their day that they might sometimes need. I want to put it somewhere like that, that make create a space online that people can come to for that. So I have. So I created the Happy Little Futures Hub. If anyone has a better name for that, please let me know because I'm not sold on the Happy Little Futures Hub. But I was like, at the time at 5:30 in the morning, I was like, this is the best I can do right now. I think it's all right. So I created that, and I my husband got up with our youngest, and I went, I am taking the dog for a walk. I'm going to go and do some filming. Um, I I felt very weird in the park that morning, walking up and down. The My feet got so muddy because I wasn't watching where I was going half the time, and me being me just kept sort of like drifting off into wet grass and all of that, and keeping an eye on the dog. But I did it. So I've recorded. So if you're listening to this, you may or may not have seen my week's worth of the journey that I've been on. And what I wanted to do today, it might go on for a little bit because it's me. Let's face it, I ramble. I just wanted to just be vulnerable once more and go into a little bit more detail. It's very difficult with social media to say everything you want to say. I struggle with writing stuff out on social media and getting my point across, and also getting my personality across, because it can be very serious when you're trying to sort of go, oh, so I've got this group and this is what I'm doing right now. When actually what I'm doing sort of is going, oh, you should come to my group. Oh, it's so lovely. Oh, I did this and that and that. And it's like I can't get across how bubbly I am. And I like putting emojis into things, guys. And for some reason, it doesn't like me to put emojis onto things. And every time I do that, I get told by Meta that I am spamming because of the amount of emojis that I've put into my posts. So now I've had to stop putting emojis into my posts. So I really feel like my personality has just been dashed from from my Facebook. So yeah, so I was like, I need to do this. I need to do that. Can't even remember where all of that bit that I've just gone on about went from. But anyway, so I'm going to be vulnerable once more. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what what my journey's looked like over the past few weeks, few years. Sorry, not few weeks. Um, Depending on how long I ramble, I might split this into two podcasts. Um, but I'm gonna start because I'm already 10 minutes in and I haven't told you anything. So I have had anxiety since I was little. The first time I can remember struggling with anxiety was when I was in year 2, which is actually, I was one of the youngest in the year, so I'm July baby. And now I look at it and I'm like, oh well, actually I was younger than my eldest was, younger than my eldest is now when I was in year 2, which feels kind of insane. She's like only just halfway through year 1 or something. Um, but I started to struggle in year 2. I don't know what changed in particular. I know that my teacher in year 2, um, I felt quite bullied by her. I know that. But obviously, we are talking if I was 7 or 6 or whatever I would have been. Talking quite a long time ago, really. Um, so, so yeah, about 25 years ago, sort of long time. So that's the first time I can remember struggling with anxiety. I look back now at sort of my time in primary school, and once I got into junior school, I remember in infant school, like putting on the funny show and stuff like that with my friends, my younger sister and all of her friends and stuff like that. Once I moved into the juniors, I remember standing at the line, looking into the infant playground, looking for my sister, basically all lunch, every lunch. Um, I remember being feeling a lot more reserved, not really being sure where I fit in. Um, like just a lot of general anxiety. Um, Year six, we had SATs, and I remember doing my year six SATs, and my anxiety had got so bad that in the end, my mom had gone in and sort of gone, look, we need more support with this because she's absolutely losing it at home. Um, and the school agreed to let me sit in my own classroom and pick a friend to sit next to, and basically sort of just have that sort of reassurance of being with a friend and being in a safe space that I knew, and not sort of being separated out and going off into a different class and stuff like that. So I remember struggling with that all through secondary school. I there's I went to an all girls school, probably a mistake in the first place. Um, there's a lot of hormones in an all girls school. So I struggled with anxiety through there, sort of social anxiety and stuff like that too. Like didn't want to be part of any disagreements, couldn't really deal with a lot of stuff. Like struggled with what I now know was dyslexia. Then I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know why I couldn't read all these things and was struggling with that, but I just sort of masked it um, and cracked on. And how I got through my GCSEs, I have no idea. There was a lot of stuff that happened. So my granny died in sort of right in the middle of my GCSEs, and that was quite a traumatic time around then. Everything happened very quickly. There was a lot of to and fro for my parents. Like they were sort of run off their feet with hospital appointments and stuff like that. I knew I had to do my GCSEs. I didn't really know what was going on because I was still quite young. I didn't fully understand. But at the same time, I knew what was coming, and so there would have been a lot of anxiety going through that. I went and cracked on and did A levels. Very much, sort of, very much went. I like geology. I'm going to do rocks and just threw myself into rocks and music as well. I'd done music since I was little, so I did music at A level. I didn't do it at GCSE, but I absolutely loved that. So yeah, I feel like that was a turning point for me really. College, where I sort of suddenly could do the things I was actually interested in and didn't have to sit there and and learn about all sorts of other rubbish that I don't really care about. Um, so so A level was all right. I had a sort of went through all the exams. It was a bit of a struggle, but it was okay. University, yeah, generally fine. There was obviously times that things were harder, but generally speaking, that time was good. Um, got with my now husband, and we sort of moved up to Yorkshire. I've spoken before about my anxiety and how my fibromyalgia got worse when we had a bug infestation after moving up to Yorkshire. So that was sort of the next big trigger. It was during that time I dabbled in meditation and mindfulness previously, but it was during that time in particular that I really went, I've got to try and see if this is really going to help. Um, and I did, and it did, and it was a real like turning point for me. Um, so I mean, I'd been meditating for a while before, well, like I said, on and off, sort of aware of mindfulness and stuff like that. But this was a real turning point for me. Like I really struggled with anxiety. It was really triggering for me, all of these bugs. Um, and my fibro really struggled. But mindfulness and meditation at that point helped me through it. I can remember meditating the times that I was going into the office in Leeds. So we lived in Yorkshire and Keighley, and I would get the train in the morning to the office, and I'd meditate on the train. I'd close my eyes. I'd put my earplugs in, not earplugs, the other ones, earphones. Put my earphones in, listen to that sort of headspace meditation, and do that, and that was great, and that really helped me. Um, and I've never looked back since then, really. So that was great. Um, and then I had our eldest and just normal I would say really that until COVID, from having my eldest, I'd say I found myself then. I finally felt comfortable with who I was. I knew who I was, um, and what I'd been meant for all this time, sort of thing. How cliche. And I did. I was in a good place. And yes, there were times that anxiety was there. Obviously, there was. I was a parent. I was a parent of eventually two children, living far away from family, sort of making my own way in the world, meeting new people, making new friends, finding adopted family. That's a shout out for you, Lucy. And all of that sort of stuff. And it was that was a really good time for me. Anxiety was there, but it wasn't dominant in my life. I didn't really struggle with postnatal depression or anything. I was very, very lucky. And then COVID hit, and we all know what COVID brought for the whole world, not just for me and not just for my daughter and my husband and my son. And obviously, as I've spoken about before, with my eldest having anxiety in that time, that was really hard. I felt a lot of what ifs and stuff like that as to not only what if I don't see my parents again? What if I don't see like my friends again? What if something happens to me and I'm not here? Like, not only all of those things, but the what if this time in her life damages her forever? What if she lives and suffers this for the rest of her life? What if my son then picks it up off her when he's actually so content and happy at the moment and he's struggling? And what if I can never get support and they don't get support until they're adults and they can advocate for themselves because I'm not doing a good enough job advocating for them now? Because, like I've said before, I struggled to access anything. There wasn't really that much around back then, for children, and I struggled. But I went back to those mindfulness and meditation things that I've done over the years, and I went, right, no, it's all going to be good. I will help them. I will do this. I will the things that I like to do to help me, I'm going to teach them. I'm going to show them how to breathe. I'm going to help them with their body. I'm going to do some sensory work. I'm going to do all these different things with them. And so I did. I did, and it was great. Um, I was about to go, and then I got pregnant with our youngest. And that sounds really negative. That's not how it was. But we were in a good place. We were having a great time as a family. And then I did get pregnant with our youngest, and that was lovely. I was really happy. Uh, I was a little bit surprised to start with, but not overly surprised. But I was I was happy. Um, and then there was a couple of things that happened over the first few weeks that sort of turned those two lines into well, they may no longer be two lines. Um, so because it was COVID, I had to go to um, I had to go to scans on my own. So I I started to bleed basically. I'm hoping in telling people this that this won't be too triggering. But I started to bleed and sort of had to go to these scans, and it would have just been a sort of early miscarriage, or late miscarriage, or just a miscarriage. So I went to the scans on my own, and for weeks there was just a fertilized egg there, and they were like, "Well, it's there, but we can't see anything else." And I didn't know what was going on inside me. I didn't know if we were going to be a family of five or if it was just going to be us four. And I was very much like, it will just be us four. I'm not going through this again. Um, as much as I tried to get my husband to be able to come, he couldn't. We were also in a time when we were trying to sell our house to move down to Birmingham, he was waiting to hear back to find out when he was starting his new job. There was a lot of stuff up in the air for us. And obviously we'd still got a daughter that was struggling with anxiety, and we've got a son that was growing up and missing out on the world. And it was and we couldn't see family, and because we're in Bradford, things kept we kept quite firmly locked down for a while. Um so it was a very, very solitary pregnancy. Luckily for us, it everything turned out good. But sort of the damage done throughout the pregnancy with the lack of support in scans, the struggle of not knowing what was going on, not really being able to talk to anyone because obviously it was sort of a bit more skeleton staff, um, all of that sort of stuff. It was incredibly traumatic. And as a parent of two other children, I had to somehow keep going and just bear with that what ifs, or those what ifs. The pregnancy came good eventually. We moved down to Birmingham when I was 8 months pregnant, exactly a month before she was born. Um, and that in itself was quite traumatic, saying goodbye to sort of adopted family and trying to I struggled with SPD and sort of pelvic girdle pain and stuff with all three kids. But with my third in particular, I had crutches from I think when I was about 12 weeks pregnant, because my ligaments just went, nah, mate, I'm not doing that. Not doing that again. So I'd really struggled pain wise. And my husband had been working away. He'd moved job, so he was away a lot of the time, and I was trying to pack up the house on my own, look after my daughter, look after my son. It was sort of try and find other houses down south, and I couldn't because even though our sale had been agreed and stuff in a time when no one was buying, all of a sudden the housing market boomed, so we sold at a loss, and then would have actually sold at a profit if we'd have sold when the house physically sold, when we moved, sort of thing. And it was just really, really, it was just horrendous. Um, we moved in with my parents, and that in itself was hard because I was used to having our own space. Not only was I used to having my own space and my family's own space, but it was unusual for us to suddenly have family around too. And it was sort of like trying to relearn who each other were from not only years of living 3.5 hours away, but also from months of having not seen them properly and only really spoken to each other on the screen and stuff. It was really stressful. And we couldn't find a house for Love Nor Money for ages. We didn't know what it got to the point where our search criteria for finding a house had narrowed down from possibly Nuneaton to the West Midlands. I mean, how big is that? That's a pretty vast space to suddenly narrow it down to. Because I was just like, we just need a house anywhere. Not only all of that, that was stressful in itself, but then our youngest was born in the back of a car, on my parents' drive. Very much, I think, a fight or flight thing as far as my body goes, where it was like I'd never wanted to do that drive in labour from house to hospital, and I'd never had to because I'd only ever been induced. Um, and sort of in that process, I I got into the car and I think my body just went, no, I'm not doing it. It's dark, it's cozy. She's fine here. It'll be fine. So we had two ambulances there. She was very cold because she was born so fast in the end. So it was quite apparently we got blue lighted. I don't know. I was just like, oh look, a baby in the back of an ambulance. Got to the hospital, and the hospital people were like, oh yeah, we thought this might happen as we hadn't seen you for a while. It's like, oh okay, glad you thought that because I had no idea I was at that point in labour. so so that's a whole other story. But yeah, so and then we came home, and the next day we went to Telford to stay at my mother-in-law's house, and my mother-in-law moved out for a week, or a couple of weeks. But whilst we were there, I then got sepsis. There'd been a little bit of retained placenta, and I got sepsis. I had to fight to get my 5-year-old. I woke up the one day and I said to my husband, I said, I really don't feel well. I said, I think I've got mastitis. Um, and in the end, I called the hospital. I was like, look, I've got an infection. I don't know what it is. I think it's mastitis. And they were like, come in and like we'll see. This is the hospital in Telford. So I went in. He had to sit in the car with a newborn baby and two bouncy toddlers outside, and I had to go in on my own. And suddenly the room started spinning. I thought I was going to pass out. I sort of said to them, like, something's wrong. Can I lie down? And they sort of looked a bit horrified and took me in, and they were like, right, okay, you've got to stay in, have IV antibiotics. You've got this, you've got that. We need to go take you for a scan. And suddenly everything ramped up, and it was quite terrifying. Um, I had no idea what was going on at the time. I was so out of it. All I knew that I was like, my baby is in the car. She is going to be hungry and she is breastfed. And they were like, she can't come in. And I was like, my baby is in the car. She is hungry and she is breastfed. She needs to come in. And they were like, she can't come in. I was like, I am not going anywhere until you get my baby. I was like, I cannot leave right now until you get my baby. I'm not going anywhere. You'll just have to put up with the fact that she. And they were like, but she's too old for that. I was like, I don't care. I was like, you're bringing me into a postnatal ward. Like, I need my baby who is newborn, however old she is in your eyes. So that she was like 4 days old, and it's like, no, she's too old for this, and it's like, no, she needs to come in. Eventually, after having fought to get my child in, they let me have my child, which in itself that's traumatic. Let alone not knowing like all this sort of stuff. I was told I might have to have an operation. I was like, I'd never wanted to have. I thought I was going to die. Like all of these things. And I think that on top of the pregnancy was probably the turning point for me. Um, when I felt extreme guilt that was our only time on our own as a family, and my body had let us down, and I'd missed out on those days with my kids. I think I was in for 3 or 4 days. So by the time I got out of hospital, my husband had only got a few more days left of paternity, which he'd had to take his holiday anyway. And it was like, and I just felt like I'd ruined everything basically. I'd been craving this time as a family for so long. And next thing I knew, we were back in Birmingham, sharing a room and sort of a space with my parents. We weren't sharing a room with my parents, we were sharing a space with my parents. And whilst I really appreciate them having us, that was difficult with a newborn baby, and having gone through what I'd gone through. Things spiraled for me then. We remained living with my parents for a further 6 months, and in that time, at one point, I did get suicidal, and I suddenly realised where my head was going, and I was in the car at the time, and I pulled over. I was waiting for sort of like postnatal, like perinatal mental health to get in touch. I'd got Birmingham Healthy Minds had sort of rushed me through. I realise now that they'd rushed me through. Back then it didn't feel like it, but compared to the way it's now, they'd rushed me through. And the therapist that I was with I'd said I just want to know how to manage what I'm going through, like so this anxiety, depression, and she'd then tried to start getting me to dig up a load of stuff from the past, and I was like, but I know where this has come from. I just need help with keeping myself on track for now for my kids, and they and she dug up a load of stuff and then said, oh, by the way, I've handed in my notice, and she sent me an email. I've handed in my notice. This week would be your last week anyway, so you're fine. So I think you'll be all right, and just left me. And I was like, I'm not okay. I am not okay. And that was where I was left. So thankfully, not long after that, the situation changed and our house finally went through and we were able to move out. It was all very situational, and a lot of the stuff I just needed to be in my own environment, I think was a big thing. After having such a disruptive pregnancy with moving house and all of that, I hadn't been able to nest or anything, all these little things. And then, yeah, I would just to recap on I did go suicidal. I pulled in, I called a doctor straight away, and I recognised the thought straight away. Pulled in, I was terrified of what was going on in my head, and got seen that day, got it all sorted. with antidepressants and stuff. And then sort of carried on. And I think that was possibly the point at which they pushed me through quickly with Healthy Minds, actually, in retrospect. Um, but yeah, so we moved house anyway. I got in, and then Perinatal Mental Health, thank goodness, contacted me. I said the same thing to them. I said, I just want to learn how to live with anxiety. I want to learn how to live with this because right now, like, I don't need to dredge up all these things. I know where this specific anxieties come from, but I don't need to dredge up all these feelings from the past, like from deep down in my childhood or whatever. I just need to learn to some techniques to help me manage it. Um, and that's what they did. They were absolutely fantastic. During that time, I think it was just before they called, I actually had a point where the one night my postnatal depression had eased actually by then. That was very situational. But the anxiety was rife. And one night I literally couldn't walk up the stairs. I froze on the stairs um, because I'd just persuaded myself that I wouldn't have any kids to walk upstairs to check on before bed. I was having a massive panic attack. My husband was away. I had to work really hard to try and overcome it. I did check on them. I calmed myself down, and I think I probably fell asleep at like 3 or 4 a.m. that night, if our littlest let me. Um, but yeah, so it was really really traumatic. Um, I was still trying to support our own kids with all their stuff. We'd started nursery from my eldest at a different nursery, because when we'd moved here and I put her into another nursery, it got so bad that she was getting really anxious and I pulled her out. Um, and then I felt guilty. Oh, the mum guilt, man, the mum guilt. I felt guilty at the fact that I'd left her to sort of deal with that. But we got back on track. I got back on track. My therapist was incredible. She was absolutely amazing. My nurse that looked after me was fantastic. Loved her to bits too. And and like between the two of them, they got me back on track. Um, and I learned to live with my anxiety. So I did that. Whilst I was doing that, I did some mindfulness courses because, as I said, I'd been doing meditation and mindfulness for years anyway. And I did these mindfulness courses, and they were just online self-led ones that were pre-recorded during COVID, so they're a few years out of date or whatever. Because by this point, I think it was 2022. This has all been happening over a very long period of time. Um, and that really helped me to sort of like refresh my mindfulness and meditation skills, help me to bring some more bits in for the family and stuff like that. And I lived in that situation sort of in a much better place. I had a year where I was like, it was great and it was fantastic. I was living with my anxiety, I was meditating with the kids, I was doing mindfulness with the kids, um, and all of that. And I'd spotted, so I got discharged January 22, from my therapist, and February 22 I'd spotted the amazing course with Angie at Stratford School of Meditation for kids meditation teacher, and I didn't feel ready at that point. I was like, no, I've just gone through a massive postnatal journey, a massive maternal mental health journey, and I just want to connect with myself and my kids right now. It wasn't the right time. And I think what was so lovely actually about this Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week is that the subject is rediscovery. And I, that year in particular, I really rediscovered myself. I was in a better place mentally than I have been for a very long time. And I really rediscovered who I am. I reconnected with myself. I sort of found me under the layers of mom, but also like I still very much feel like my identity is mom because that's who I want to be. And it was now who I wanted to be, not who I was, if that makes sense. Um, and yeah, it was just I really reconnected, and it was fantastic. So follow on a year from that, and that is when I didn't realize actually at the time that it was exactly a year. Until like about 6 months after I'd done the course. But that was when I retrained as a kids meditation teacher, and then as a meditation teacher and a meditation for mental health facilitator. And yeah, and that's what I've been doing ever since. And now I want, I'm here to help you. I'm here now to help you rediscover who you are. Um, the journey I've been on, I possibly could have gone through a lot on my own with meditation and mindfulness. Um, I feel that I needed, because of the extremity of the situation and the what's the word? What is the word, Lucy? And the situation, I needed that extra support of the therapist. But a lot of what she did was very similar now to what I do, sort of a lot more psychology based. Whereas I sort of work through just mindfulness and meditation. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, um, but I'm here to help you use techniques to reconnect with yourself and reconnect with your kids and reconnect with the present moment. But also, I feel so passionately about the fact that if I'd have had these skills that I have now inbuilt from a young age, like I'm doing with my kids, and they were there as tools that I could rely on, um, I really feel that I wouldn't have to have struggled quite as much as I did. Um, in the day to day, like there's a lot of hormones and stuff like that, obviously, that's associated with maternal mental health on top of depression. And like I'm fully aware, I'm no psychologist. I've said this before, I'm no psychologist. Um, and I'm no doctor, but I know that there's a lot of hormones and stuff like that. But I think the day to day, there's a lot that I could have possibly managed better throughout my childhood, throughout school, throughout university, work, all of that, if I'd have had these skills inbuilt. And so I'm also here to help teach your kids these skills, teach you how to help them learn these skills, and in the process, teach them for yourself, create those mental health toolkits for your whole family. Um, and that's what I'm doing now. That's what I wish I'd had when I was younger. I wish I'd had before COVID to help build in for my children. And so I am here to be that person, to do that for you and with you. And whether you come to my toddler group in Barnt Green, or hopefully there'll be more over the years that build up once kids are more settled in nursery and school, or whether you do it online with me, or whether you just join the Happy Little Futures Hub over on Facebook and just sit and watch other techniques that other people use, little bits and little nuggets that I put out for you there, um, and start your own journey there. Just sort of taking a moment of peace for yourself there. Then that's what I'm here for. So I'm going to finish on that. It's a very long episode. I didn't split it in the end because I was in the flow and I felt it was important. So it's a mega episode, and I really hope I've got the space on my laptop to save this in a second, or I'm going to regret it. And I'm going to leave it there. Please message me privately or on any of my platforms, and just I, I'd like to start a conversation. I suppose it'd be great to start a conversation. And hopefully I'll see you on the hub or anywhere else. And if not, hopefully you'll carry on listening to my podcast after I've been very vulnerable. So with that, we'll take one final deep breath in to our stomachs and out through your mouth. And I will catch you later.